The plasma bolt missed my cranial ridge by exactly 2.7 centimeters. Not that I was measuring much. Grix-Nine? Status report. Commander Thanefor's voice crackled through my neural comm, barely audible over the symphony of destruction playing out across the Terran colony of New Phoenix. I ducked behind a twisted chunk of what used to be a civilian transport, feeling the heat signature of another human sniper painting my position. Wonderful. Just absolutely wonderful. 3 rotations into this campaign and these hairless bipeds were still making my life unnecessarily complicated. Status is, I am currently not dead, Commander. I replied, checking my weapon's charge level, though I suspect that may change in the next few micronits if these humans keep up their enthusiasm. Enthusiasm. That was putting it mildly. You see, when the Hegemony Council first briefed us on the Terran species, they painted a picture of a primitive civilization barely capable of interstellar travel. Weak, they said. Disorganized, no real military tradition to speak of. A simple conquest, they promised, in and out in less than 1 full cycle. That was 8 cycles ago. 8 bloody, grinding, exhausting cycles of watching these supposed primitives turn every single strategic doctrine in the Hegemony manual into confetti. And not the good kind of confetti. The kind that explodes in your face and leaves you questioning your life choices. Another plasma bolt seared past my position, followed by something that definitely was not standard Hegemony ordnance. The explosion shook the ground hard enough to rattle my mandibles, and I caught a whiff of that particular chemical signature that meant the humans had been busy in their workshops again. Thane 4 to all units, came the commander's increasingly strained voice. Fall back to secondary positions. Repeat. Fall back to secondary positions. Human forces have breached the northern perimeter. Breached. Such a polite way of saying they had torn through our defensive line like it was made of crystallized sugar rather than military-grade barriers. I began my tactical withdrawal, which is military speak for running like my carapace was on fire, when I heard it. That sound that had haunted my dreams for the past 3 cycles. Human laughter. Not the bitter, defeated laughter of a conquered species. Not the hysterical giggling of minds broken by war. No, this was worse. This was the laughter of beings who were actually enjoying themselves. The laughter of predators who had found prey worthy of their attention. I rounded the corner of a collapsed administrative building and froze. There, standing in the middle of what had been our forward command post, was a human. Just one. Female. By the look of her, though telling human genders apart was still something of a challenge for my species. She was covered in the matte black armor their special forces favored, weapon lowered, and she was laughing. Laughing at the bodies of 7 Hegemony shock troopers scattered around her like broken toys. "Oh, come on," she called out, apparently addressing the air itself. "That cannot be all you have. I was just getting warmed up." The sheer audacity of it struck me like a physical blow. Here was a single human, outnumbered, outgunned, deep in enemy territory, and she was complaining about the lack of adequate opposition. I raised my plasma rifle, steadied my aim, and prepared to teach this arrogant mammal a lesson about proper battlefield etiquette. The targeting system locked onto her center mass, probability calculations scrolling across my vision display. Direct hit probability, 94.7%. I pulled the trigger. She moved. Not dove. Not rolled. Not any of the standard evasive maneuvers outlined in our intelligence files on human combat behavior. She simply moved. One moment she was standing there. The next she was 3 meters to the left, and my plasma bolt was carving a very expensive hole in a wall that did not deserve such treatment. "Well, well, well," she said, turning toward my position with what I could only describe as predatory interest. "What do we have here?" I fired again. This time I led the target, compensated for her apparent reaction speed, adjusted for atmospheric conditions, and even threw in a small prayer to whatever cosmic forces might be listening. She moved again. This time she moved toward me. While shooting, human projectile weapons are crude things. Chemical propellants, metal projectiles, simple kinetic force. Nothing like the elegant plasma systems or particle beam weapons that civilized species employ. They are loud, messy, and fundamentally barbaric. They are also, as I was rapidly learning, extremely effective at making large holes in Hegemony armor. I dove behind another chunk of debris as her rounds chewed through the air where my thorax had been. The impacts on my cover sounded like an industrial percussion ensemble having a nervous breakdown. "That is some interesting armor you are wearing there, Bug Boy," she called out, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Actually hear it. Adaptive plating? Environmental seals? Very impressive for a species that supposedly just figured out space travel." I keyed my comm channel. "I'm the 4. I need immediate backup at grid reference. Sorry, Grix-Nine. All units are engaged. You are on your own for now." "Wonderful. Absolutely, perfectly wonderful. Did you know," the human continued, her voice getting closer, "that your intelligence files on humans are about as accurate as a drunk pilot in an asteroid field?" Another burst of fire. This time the rounds were coming from a completely different angle. She was moving, flanking, using terrain like she had been born to it. "For instance," she went on, and I could hear her reloading with practiced efficiency, "your files say humans have poor night vision, slow reflexes, limited endurance, weak pack coordination." I popped up from cover, spotted her position, and sent a spread of plasma fire in her general direction. The shots lit up the twilight like angry stars, and for a moment I thought I might have actually hit something important. "Your files also say," she continued, her voice now coming from yet another direction, "that humans break easily under pressure, that we panic in combat, that we have no real warrior traditions." This time when I tried to relocate, something struck my left shoulder plate with the force of a small asteroid. The impact spun me around and sent me tumbling behind what remained of a fountain. The armor held, barely, but I could feel the hairline fractures spreading through the composite material. "The thing about your intelligence files," she said, and suddenly her voice was much, much closer, "is that they were compiled during peacetime, from civilian interactions, from diplomats and traders and scientists." I managed to get my rifle up just as she came around the edge of my cover. For a split second, we stared at each other across the barrels of our respective weapons. Her face was pale in the dim light, streaked with sweat and dust, framed by dark hair that had escaped whatever restraints she had been using. Her eyes were blue, bright blue, like the warning lights on a reactor about to go critical. "You never met us when we were actually trying to kill you," she said. Then she smiled. I had seen human smiles before, in the intelligence briefings, in captured footage, in propaganda broadcasts. They had always seemed like simple facial expressions to me, meaningless biological responses. This smile was different. This smile contained multitudes. It spoke of violence barely held in check, of intelligence sharp enough to cut, of a joy in conflict that my species had never truly understood. This smile belonged on the face of something that had evolved from predators, that had climbed to the top of their food chain through cunning and cooperation and an absolute refusal to admit defeat. This smile was terrifying. We fired simultaneously. Her projectile took me in the center of my chest plate, the impact lifting me off my feet and slamming me back against the broken fountain. Warning lights flashed across my vision display as my armor's integrity dropped to critical levels. The taste of my own vital fluids filled my mandibles. My plasma bolt took her in the left shoulder, spinning her around and sending her weapon flying from her hands. She hit the ground hard, rolled, came up empty-handed but still moving. For a moment we both lay there, breathing heavily, taking stock of our respective damage. My chest felt like someone had been using it for percussion practice, and her left arm was hanging at an angle that suggested significant structural damage. "Not bad for a bug," she said, climbing slowly to her feet. "But you are still thinking like this is some kind of civilized conflict." I tried to raise my rifle, but discovered that my right arm was not particularly interested in following orders at the moment. The human took a step closer, favoring her injured side but still moving with that fluid grace that made my targeting systems weep. "This is not a war," she continued, and now I could see that her smile had changed. It was smaller now, more personal, almost fond. "This is an education, and class is in session." She reached down and picked up something from the debris at her feet. A shard of metal twisted and sharp-edged from the battle damage. In her uninjured hand, it looked like it belonged there. like she had been born holding weapons. "Your species made a mistake," she said, still approaching. "You attacked our colonies, our homes, our families." Another step closer. I managed to get my secondary weapon halfway clear of its holster before my damaged servo systems locked up completely. "You declared war on a species that spent its entire evolutionary history at war with itself," she continued. "We have been killing each other with sticks and stones and harsh language for millennia. We have turned warfare into an art form. We have made peace the exception and conflict the rule." She was close enough now that I could see the details of her armor, the small modifications and personal touches that marked it as belonging to a veteran. Close enough to see the scars on her visible skin, the calluses on her hands. The way she moved like violence was a language she spoke fluently. "And then you gave us a common enemy." I managed to find my voice. You are just one human. One soldier against an entire hegemony battle group." She laughed again, but this time it was different. Warmer. Almost affectionate. "Oh, sweet summer child," she said, and reached up to touch something on her helmet. "I am not alone." The comm channel crackled to life, and suddenly I was hearing voices. Human voices. Dozens of them. All around the combat zone. All coordinating, planning, moving with purpose. "Bravo Squad, North Wall is secure. Charlie Team has eyes on the landing zone. Multiple bogies inbound. Delta Company, we have a problem at the communications array. Bugs are trying to call for help. Echo Squad, ammunition depot is ours. Charges are set. Foxtrot Team, civilian evacuation is complete. All friendlies are clear." It went on and on. A symphony of coordination that spoke of training, discipline, and experience far beyond what our intelligence files had suggested. They were not just fighting. They were conducting a military operation with the precision of a chronometer and the efficiency of a natural force. "You see," the human said. And now she was close enough that I could smell the metallic tang of her blood mixed with the ozone scent of discharged weapons. "Your mistake was thinking this was about superior technology. Better weapons, stronger armor." She crouched down next to me, close enough to touch, the metal shard still held casually in her hand. At this range, I could see that her eyes were not just blue. They held flecks of green and gold, like tiny stars scattered across an alien sky. "This was never about technology," she said softly. "This was about will, about determination, about what happens when you threaten something that someone loves enough to die for." I stared up at her, my vision starting to blur as my systems began shutting down non-essential functions. What are you?" She tilted her head, considering the question with what appeared to be genuine curiosity. "What am I?" "I am Staff Sergeant Elena Martinez, 3rd Battalion, Human Colonial Defense Force. I am a soldier. I am a daughter. I am someone's girlfriend. Back home on Earth. I am someone who really does not appreciate it when uninvited guests show up and start shooting up the neighborhood." Another crackle from the comm system. "Elena, we are moving to final positions. Extraction in 10 minutes. Copy that," she replied, never taking her eyes off me. "One last conversation to finish here." She stood up, the movement fluid despite her injury. "Your people called this Operation Harvest. You came here to reap what you had not sown, to take what you had not earned." The sound of explosions was getting closer now. Whatever the humans had planned, it was entering its final phase. "But you know what the really funny part is?" she asked, and that smile was back. "You call me beautiful?" I blinked, confusion cutting through the pain and system failures. "What?" "Your species," she said, gesturing vaguely at my damaged form. "In all your intelligence reports, all your psychological profiles, you keep referring to humans as beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, fascinating to observe." She was right. It was in all the files. Something about human symmetry and proportion that appealed to our visual processing centers. Something about the way they moved that was pleasing to watch. "You call me beautiful, human," I managed to whisper, echoing the words that would later become legend among my people. "But you have not seen what I am beneath the armor," she finished and reached up to touch the release mechanism on her helmet seals. The helmet came away with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. and for the first time I saw a human face without any technological mediation. No filters, no display overlays, no sensor interpretations, just raw, unprocessed human features in natural light. She was beautiful, terrifyingly, impossibly beautiful. But not in the way our intelligence files had suggested. This was not the beauty of symmetry or proportion or aesthetic appeal. This was the beauty of a predator in its prime. The beauty of something perfectly adapted to its purpose. The beauty of controlled violence and focused intelligence and absolute, unwavering determination. This was the beauty of a species that had earned its place in the universe through 10,000 years of constant warfare, who had learned to turn conflict into art and survival into science. "You see," she said, and her smile was the last thing I saw before my vision systems finally failed completely. "Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and we humans, we have very specific ideas about what makes something beautiful." The explosions were getting closer now, and through my failing audio pickups, I could hear the sound of human voices calling out coordinates, confirming kills, reporting mission status. They were professionals, veterans, and they were winning. "Sleep well, bug boy," Elena Martinez whispered, and I felt her hand touch my helmet in what might have been meant as a gentle gesture. "When you wake up, if you wake up, remember this conversation. Remember what it feels like to meet humanity when we are actually trying." The last thing I heard before unconsciousness claimed me was her voice on the comm channel, crisp and professional. "Package secured. Moving to extraction point now, mission complete." And then there was darkness, and the sound of a colony world burning, and the distant echo of human laughter carrying on the wind like a promise of things to come. When I finally awakened, 3 cycles later, in a Hegemony medical facility, 17 systems away from New Phoenix, the first thing I asked for was a communication line to High Command. The second thing I asked for was Elena Martinez's service record. The third thing I did was request an immediate transfer to the Intelligence Division, because somebody needed to rewrite those files about human military capabilities. Somebody needed to tell the truth about what we were really facing. And somebody needed to explain to the Hegemony Council that we had not just made an enemy. We had made a mistake. A beautiful, terrible, absolutely fatal mistake. Intelligence Analyst Grix-Nine, formerly of the 7th Assault Division, currently of the Strategic Information Department, stared at the holographic display floating above his workstation and wondered if madness was contagious. Because what he was looking at should not have been possible. "Run the simulation again," he ordered the tactical computer, his mandibles clicking with nervous energy. "Simulation parameters unchanged," the computer replied in its maddeningly calm voice. "Human tactical doctrine analysis, iteration 4763. Result: Hegemony forces suffer 97.4% casualties. Projected mission failure in 6.2 cycles. 6.2 cycles. What had started as a simple pacification operation was now being measured in the total annihilation of Hegemony forces. All because of Elena Martinez and her species of beautiful, terrible, absolutely insane warriors. It had been 2 full cycles since New Phoenix. 2 cycles of sleepless nights, endless data analysis, and the growing certainty that the Hegemony had stumbled into something far beyond their understanding. The official reports still spoke of unexpected resistance and tactical adjustments, but Grix-Nine had seen the classified casualty figures. He had read the after-action reports that somehow always ended with phrases like "enemy forces vanished" and "position overrun by unknown means." He had also read Elena Martinez's service record. All 47 pages of it. The woman who had nearly killed him with a shard of metal was not even considered exceptional by human standards. She was, according to her own military's classification system, above average in combat effectiveness. Above average. The being who had moved like liquid violence and smiled while discussing the finer points of warfare was apparently just slightly better than typical for her species. This information had kept him awake for the better part of a 10th cycle. Grix-Nine to Command Center. He spoke into his communicator, his voice carefully controlled. "I need to speak with Admiral Korvax. Priority Alpha. Admiral Korvax is in strategic planning session. Priority Alpha authenticated. Connecting now." The hologram of Admiral Korvax materialized above Grix-Nine's workstation, the old warrior's scarred carapace gleaming under the artificial light. Korvax had served in 17 major campaigns, conquered 4 different star systems, and was widely regarded as one of the finest military minds in Hegemony space. He also looked like he had not slept in several rotations. Analyst Grix-Nine. The Admiral's voice carried the weight of exhaustion and barely controlled frustration. Please tell me you have good news about the human situation. I have news, Admiral. Whether it qualifies as good depends entirely on your perspective and possibly your medication levels. Korvax's primary eyes narrowed. Explain. Grix-Nine gestured to his displays, and the tactical data began flowing across the connection. Sir, I have completed my analysis of human military doctrines, psychological profiles, and combat capabilities. The results are concerning. More concerning than losing 3 battle groups in 2 cycles? Considerably more concerning, sir. The humans are not fighting us. A pause. Analyst, I am looking at casualty reports that suggest otherwise. No, sir, you are looking at casualty reports that document the results of human training exercises. What we are experiencing is not warfare by human standards. It is education. Admiral Korvax leaned forward, his secondary arms clasping behind his back in a gesture that Grix-Nine recognized as barely restrained violence. Explain. Now, Grix-Nine called up a series of tactical displays. Human military doctrine recognizes 17 distinct classifications of armed conflict, ranging from police action to something they call total war. Based on my analysis of their troop deployments, weapon selection, and operational parameters, the humans are currently engaging us at classification level 4 out of 17. Correct, sir. What they classify as limited regional conflict with minimal strategic importance. The silence that followed was profound enough that Grix-Nine wondered if the communication link had failed. When Admiral Korvax finally spoke, his voice carried a tone that the analyst had never heard before. Something that might have been show me level 17. Grix-Nine hesitated. Sir, I am not certain that would be advisable for your psychological health. Show me. Level 17. The data flowed across the connection. Population mobilization percentages, industrial conversion rates, weapon production statistics, historical precedents. The mathematical models were elegant in their precision and absolutely horrifying in their implications. Admiral Korvax studied the information for several long moments. When he looked up, his eyes held a new quality. Something that looked suspiciously like respect. These numbers, he said slowly, these cannot be accurate. I have verified them through 17 different sources, sir. Human historical records are remarkably thorough. According to this data, during their Second World War, humans converted their entire planetary economy to military production in less than 2 of their years. Weapons manufacturing increased by 4,000%. Population mobilization reached 93% in some regions. Yes, sir. And they sustained this level of effort for 6 years. Yes, sir. While fighting on 7 different continents simultaneously. Yes, sir. Against multiple enemies who possessed comparable technology. Yes, sir. Sir, there is something else. Admiral Korvax looked like he was developing a headache. What else? They won. Another profound silence. Grix-Nine waited, watching the Admiral process information that would have driven lesser minds to despair. Finally, Korvax spoke again. How many humans are currently deployed against us? Approximately 40,000, sir. Across all theaters of operation, and their total military consists of. Grix-Nine checked his displays. Current active military personnel across all human colonies and Earth itself approximately 230 million. The sound Admiral Korvax made was not quite a growl and not quite a whimper. It was the sound of a career military officer realizing that his strategic situation had moved beyond merely impossible and into the realm of cosmic joke. Sir, Grix-Nine continued, his voice gentle, there is one more thing you should know. I am not certain my sanity can withstand any more revelations, Analyst. The humans have been studying us as well. This time Admiral Korvax actually laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Of course they have. What have they learned? Everything, sir. tactical doctrine, technological capabilities, psychological profiles, cultural analysis, logistical requirements, communication protocols, and weapons specifications. Grix-Nine paused. They know us better than we know ourselves. How is that possible? Because, sir, they have been listening to everything. Every communication, every data burst, every tactical transmission. They have been recording and analyzing our operations since the first day of contact. Admiral Korvax was quiet for a long moment. Show me their assessment of our military capabilities. The human intelligence files appeared on the display, and Grix-Nine watched the Admiral's expression change as he read. The assessment was thorough, accurate, and utterly devastating in its clinical precision. The humans had identified every weakness, catalogued every tactical limitation, and developed countermeasures for scenarios that Hegemony strategists had not even considered. According to this, Admiral Korvax said slowly, they predicted our current casualty rates to within 0.03%. Yes, sir, 3 months ago, before we had even engaged their main forces. Yes, sir, there is something else in those files that I think you should see. More data flowed across the connection. This time it was personnel files, human soldiers, their service records, psychological profiles, and combat assessments. Names like David Kim, Sarah Thompson, Marcus Johnson, and Elena Martinez. These are all the humans we have encountered in combat situations, Grix-Nine explained. Note the common factor. Admiral Korvax studied the files, his expression growing increasingly troubled. They are all classified as volunteer colonial defense forces. Correct, sir. Not regular military, not elite special forces, not career soldiers. These are part-time militia members who volunteered to defend their homes. You are telling me that we have been fighting farmers and shopkeepers. Farmers and shopkeepers who have been training for warfare since they were old enough to hold weapons. Sir, human culture is unique in its approach to military preparedness. Another display activated, showing human colony civilian training programs. Mandatory military service. Universal weapons training. Combat simulation exercises disguised as entertainment. Physical fitness programs that would have challenged Hegemony's special forces. They turn warfare into games, Grix-Nine continued. They practice violence for entertainment. They study military history as hobby. They compete in combat sports for recreation. Admiral Korvax stared at the data, his expression moving through several stages of disbelief before settling on something that might have been admiration. What kind of species does this? A species that spent 10,000 years killing each other, sir. A species that learned to survive by becoming very, very good at violence. The communication was interrupted by an alert klaxon. Emergency signals began flashing across Grix-Nine's workstation. Admiral, came a panicked voice over the general communication channel. We have a situation developing at the Kepler 442 system. Human forces have launched what appears to be a coordinated assault on our forward base. Admiral Korvax closed his eyes. How many humans? Sir, initial reports suggest approximately 50. 50 humans against a fortified base designed to withstand a full assault division. Yes, sir. What is their current status? A pause. Then, in a voice that sounded like it belonged to someone whose worldview was rapidly disintegrating. Sir, they have penetrated our outer defenses and are currently engaging our main garrison. Casualties are significant. Grix-Nine pulled up the tactical feed from Kepler 442 and immediately wished he had not. The display showed human soldiers moving through the base like they owned it, working in perfect coordination, adapting their tactics in real time as circumstances changed. It was like watching a masterclass in applied violence. Grix-Nine, Admiral Korvax's voice was very quiet. Show me the psychological profile for Elena Martinez again. The data appeared on screen. Elena Martinez, age 27. Occupation before military service, elementary school teacher. Hobbies, gardening, classical music, and competitive marksmanship. Family status, engaged to be married. Psychological evaluation, stable, well-adjusted, demonstrates strong protective instincts regarding civilian populations. A teacher, Admiral Korvax said. Yes, sir. Who nearly killed you with a piece of scrap metal? Yes, sir. and who is classified as above average for her species. Yes, sir. Another alert signal. This time from the Tau Ceti system, then another from Wolf 300-9, then Glaze 6067C. One by one, human forces were engaging hegemony positions across 17 different star systems, and one by one those positions were falling. How many systems are under attack? Admiral Korvax asked. All of them, sir. All of them? Every hegemony installation in human space is currently under assault. Coordinated, simultaneous attacks launched with precision timing across multiple light-years of space. Admiral Korvax studied the tactical displays, watching red markers representing hegemony positions wink out one by one. The logistics alone are beyond anything we previously thought possible, sir. The humans have been planning this for months. Every engagement we thought we were winning was actually gathering intelligence for this moment. They let us win? They let us think we were winning, sir. There is a significant difference. The communication channel crackled again. This time the voice belonged to Captain Youth 7 of the 3rd Battle Group. Admiral, we have a situation at New Carthage. Human forces have captured our communication array and are broadcasting on all channels. What are they broadcasting? Sir, it appears to be a message. For you specifically. Admiral Korvax exchanged a look with Grix-Nine. Put it through. The display cleared, and suddenly they were looking at a human face. Male, middle-aged, wearing the simple uniform of the human colonial defense force. His expression was calm, professional, and carried the unmistakable confidence of someone who held all the advantages. Admiral Korvax, the human said, his voice carrying easily through the translation matrix. My name is General David Park, Commanding Officer of Human Colonial Defense Forces, Sector 7. I believe we need to talk. General Park, Admiral Korvax replied, his voice carefully neutral. I am listening. Excellent. I am calling to discuss the terms of your surrender. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Surrender? No. Hegemony force had surrendered in over 200 years. The concept was so foreign that the translation matrix had to search its database for an appropriate equivalent. You seem to be under the impression that you are winning this conflict, Admiral Korvax said. General Park smiled. It was not the predatory smile that Grix-Nine had seen on Elena Martinez. This was something worse. This was the smile of someone who was being polite while explaining an inevitable conclusion. Admiral, in the past 6 hours, human forces have captured or destroyed 87% of your forward positions. Your casualty rate is approaching 90%. Your supply lines have been severed. Your communication networks have been compromised, and your reinforcement fleets are currently being engaged by elements of our Navy that you did not know existed. As if to emphasize his point, new alerts began flashing across the tactical displays. Battle groups that had been en route to support the ground forces were reporting contact with human vessels. Ships that should not have existed, using technology that was supposedly beyond human capabilities. However, General Park continued, I am prepared to offer terms that will allow your surviving personnel to return home safely. And what would those terms be? Complete withdrawal from all human territories. Reparations for damages caused to civilian infrastructure. A formal apology from the Hegemony Council, and a non-aggression treaty guaranteeing that this will never happen again. Admiral Korvax looked like he had been struck by lightning. And if we refuse? General Park's smile changed. Just slightly. Just enough to remind everyone watching that humans were predators who had learned to wear the mask of civilization. Admiral, what you have experienced so far represents approximately 3% of human military capability. If you refuse our terms, you will have the opportunity to experience the remaining 97%. You are bluffing. Elena Martinez sends her regards, by the way, General Park said, and Grix-Nine felt his carapace go cold. She wanted me to tell you that her unit finished their mission at New Phoenix with 0 casualties. She also wanted me to thank you for the educational experience. The transmission cut out, leaving Admiral Korvax and Grix-Nine staring at a blank display. Around them, the tactical boards continued their grim countdown as hegemony positions fell one by one. Analyst, Admiral Korvax said finally, his voice very quiet. In your professional opinion, What are our chances of achieving victory in this conflict? Grix-Nine looked at his data, at the casualty reports, at the tactical assessments and psychological profiles and strategic analyses. He thought about Elena Martinez and her smile, about David Park and his polite confidence, about a species that had spent millennia learning to kill each other with such efficiency that they could make war look like art. "Sir," he said, "I believe our chances of victory are roughly equivalent to the probability of a supernova occurring in this system within the next 30 seconds. Admiral Korvax nodded slowly. "Contact the Hegemony Council. Tell them we need to discuss terms of surrender." "Yes, sir." And Grix-Nine, "Sir? Include in your report that the humans were right about one thing. They are beautiful. Absolutely, terrifyingly beautiful." As Grix-Nine began composing what would become the most important intelligence report in Hegemony history, he found himself thinking about Elena Martinez again. About her smile, her confidence, her casual discussion of violence and strategy and the terrible mathematics of war. "You call me beautiful, human, but you have not seen what I am beneath the armor." Now he understood what she had meant. The armor was not just physical protection. It was restraint. It was civilization. It was the thin shell that kept the universe safe from what humans really were underneath. And they had just made the mistake of forcing her to take it off. The Hegemony Council chamber had seen many momentous decisions throughout its 1,000-year history. It had witnessed the declaration of 17 major wars, the annexation of 43 star systems, and the subjugation of 9 different species. It had never witnessed anything quite like this. Intelligence analyst Grix-Nine stood before the assembled council, his report clutched in his primary manipulator, watching the most powerful beings in Hegemony space grapple with information that challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. "Let me ensure I understand this correctly," Council Prime Vortex Supreme intoned, his ancient voice carrying the weight of centuries. "You are recommending that the Hegemony, the greatest military power in this spiral arm, surrender unconditionally to a species we have classified as technologically primitive." "Yes, Council Prime. Based on the combat performance of what amounts to part-time militia forces." "Yes, Council Prime. And your reasoning is that continuing this conflict would result in what you term species-ending consequences for the Hegemony." Grix-Nine felt his carapace plates shift nervously. "That is a conservative estimate, Council Prime." Councillor Grix-Nine leaned forward, her scarred features twisted into an expression of disbelief. "Analyst, we have conquered 47 different worlds. We have subjugated species that possessed technology superior to our own. We have never faced an enemy we could not defeat through superior force and tactical doctrine. Respectfully, Counselor, we have never faced humans." "They are mammals," Counselor Zephyr-8 interjected, his mandibles clicking with dismissive amusement. "Soft-bodied, short-lived creatures barely removed from their primitive origins. How dangerous could they possibly be?" Grix-Nine activated his presentation display and the holographic images began flowing through the chamber. Casualty reports, tactical analyses, psychological profile. Most importantly, the recordings from New Phoenix and 17 other combat zones where human forces had systematically dismantled hegemony positions with surgical precision. This dangerous counselor. The council watched in silence as Elena Martinez and her fellow humans moved through their respective battlefields, like forces of nature. Every movement was calculated. Every action served multiple purposes. Every engagement demonstrated a level of tactical sophistication that made hegemony doctrine look crude by comparison. "These recordings," Council Prime Vortex Supreme said slowly, "they have been verified. Multiple times, Council Prime. I have also included comparative analysis with our own elite units." The comparison data painted a picture that was difficult to accept. Human colonial militia members consistently outperformed hegemony special forces in every measurable category: reaction time, accuracy, tactical awareness, adaptability, endurance, and something the humans called combat effectiveness under stress. "How is this possible?" Councillor Grix-Nine demanded. "Because, Counselor, humans have been practicing warfare for their entire evolutionary history. They are not a peaceful species that learned violence for necessity. They are a violent species that learned peace as a luxury." More data flowed across the displays, historical records of human conflicts, technological development timelines, population dynamics during periods of warfare. The mathematics were as elegant as they were terrifying. During their Second World War, Grix-Nine continued, humans killed approximately 75 million of their own species in 6 years. For perspective, that represents more combat deaths than the Hegemony has suffered in all conflicts over the past 2 centuries. Counselor Zephyr 8 made a sound that might have been horror. They killed 75 million of their own people, and then rebuilt their entire civilization in less than 20 years, Grix-Nine added, while simultaneously developing technology that allowed them to reach other star systems. What about their current capabilities? Council Prime Vorthak Supreme asked. You mentioned that we have only encountered 3% of their military capacity. Grix-Nine hesitated. This was the part of his report that had given him nightmares for the past cycle. Council Prime, I must warn you that what I am about to show you may be disturbing. Show us. The display changed, revealing intelligence gathered from human military databases, ship construction facilities, weapon manufacturing centers, training complexes, logistics networks. The scale was beyond anything the Hegemony had imagined possible for a species they had classified as a recently spacefaring. This is their Earth system, Grix-Nine explained, highlighting a single star system on the tactical display. Home to approximately 8 billion human. Current military infrastructure includes 47 major shipyards, 233 weapons manufacturing facilities, and over 3,000 training centers. The Council stared at the numbers in stunned silence. Their colonial systems, Grix-Nine continued, expanding the display to show the full scope of human space, represent approximately 12% of their total military production capacity. 12%, Councillor Grix-Nine repeated. Yes, Councillor. Which means we have been fighting approximately 3% of 12% of total human military capability. The mathematical implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. They had been losing badly to 0.36% of human military power. What would happen, Council Prime Vorthak Supreme asked with the voice of someone who already knew he would not like the answer, if they committed their full resources to this conflict? Grix-Nine activated another display. This one showed projections, mathematical models based on human historical performance and current capabilities. The numbers were precise, scientifically rigorous, and absolutely apocalyptic. Total Hegemony casualties within 2 cycles, 99.7%. Infrastructure damage complete. Fleet assets, 0. Probability of Hegemony survival as a species negligible. The silence that followed was profound enough to hear the hum of the chamber's environmental systems. There must be some mistake, Councillor Zephyr 8 said, his voice barely above a whisper. I have verified these calculations through 47 different analytical models, Councillor. The margin of error is less than 0.01%. Before anyone could respond, an alert signal echoed through the chamber. Communications Officer Drax 6 materialized as a holographic projection, his expression carrying the particular strain that came from being the bearer of impossible news. Council Prime, we have received another transmission from the humans. General Park is requesting immediate response to his surrender terms. How immediate? Council Prime Vorthak Supreme asked. He has given us 1 local hour. Council Prime. 1 hour? To decide the fate of the entire Hegemony? Yes, Council Prime. He also indicated that failure to respond within that time frame would be interpreted as a rejection of negotiations. Grix-Nine felt his carapace go cold. Council Prime, you cannot reject those negotiations. And why not, Analyst? Because, Council Prime, we have been trying to contact our forces in the field for the past 6 hours. We have not received a single response. The implications of that statement rippled through the chamber like a shockwave. If Hegemony forces were not responding to communications, it meant one of 2 things. Either their communication equipment had been systematically destroyed, or there was no one left alive to operate it. All of them? Councillor Grix-Nine asked. Every unit, every battle group, every forward base, total communication blackout across 17 star systems. Council Prime Vorthak Supreme closed his eyes. Show me the human terms again. The surrender document appeared on the main display. It was Grix-Nine Grix-Nine had to admit remarkably reasonable for a species that could apparently annihilate the hegemony without significant effort. Complete withdrawal from human space. Reparations for civilian infrastructure damage. A formal apology. A non-aggression treaty. These terms, Councillor Zephyr said slowly, they are almost generous. Yes, Councillor. The humans appear to have no interest in conquest or subjugation. They simply want to be left alone. What happens if we accept? Our forces withdraw, we pay for damages, and we never bother them again. And if we refuse? Grix-Nine looked at his projections again, at the mathematical certainty of extinction spelled out in precise calculations. Then we find out what humans are really like when they stop being polite. The communications system activated again, and General David Park's face appeared on the display. This time, however, he was not alone. Standing beside him was Elena Martinez. No longer wearing the simple armor of colonial militia, she was dressed in what appeared to be the formal uniform of human military command, her insignia indicating a rank that Grix-Nine did not recognize but which seemed to carry considerable authority. Council Prime Vortex Supreme, General Park said, his voice carrying across the chamber with crystalline clarity. I trust you have had time to consider our terms. General Park, Council Prime Vortex Supreme replied, his voice carefully controlled. We are prepared to discuss your proposal. Excellent. However, before we proceed, Colonel Martinez has requested permission to address your council directly. Elena Martinez stepped forward, and Grix-Nine felt the same primal chill he had experienced on New Phoenix. Up close through the high-resolution display, he could see details that had been lost in the chaos of combat. The precision of her movements, the intelligence in her eyes, the way she carried herself like someone who understood violence on a fundamental level. Honored Council, she began, her voice polite but carrying an edge that suggested politeness was a choice rather than a limitation. I wanted to personally thank you for this educational opportunity. Educational opportunity? Councillor Grix-Nine asked. Oh yes, Elena smiled. And that smile contained multitudes. You see, humans have been at peace for over 2 centuries. Real peace. No major conflicts, no large-scale military operations, no significant external threats. We had begun to wonder if we were losing our edge. She gestured to something off-screen and the display split to show tactical feeds from across human space. Dozens of star systems, hundreds of military installations, thousands of vessels and facilities all operating with clockwork precision. Your invasion provided us with the perfect opportunity to test our current capabilities against a real opponent, to see if our training programs were adequate, to evaluate our equipment under combat conditions, to assess our logistics networks and command structures. The feeds showed human forces moving through space and across planetary surfaces with mechanical efficiency. Ship formations that flowed like living things. Ground forces that seemed to materialize wherever they were needed. Supply lines that functioned with mathematical precision. The results, Elena continued, have been most illuminating. What are you saying? Council Prime Vortex Supreme asked, though Grix-Nine suspected he already knew. I am saying, honored Council, that this entire conflict has been a training exercise for us, a chance to dust off our skills and see if we still remember how to fight wars. The camera pulled back, revealing the scope of human operations. Tactical displays showing fleet movements across dozens of star systems. Combat reports flowing in real time from hundreds of engagement zones. Personnel rosters displaying mobilization numbers that made Grix-Nine's analysis look conservative. We have been fighting you with training units, Elena said, her voice taking on the tone of someone explaining a simple concept to a slow student. Militia forces, colonial defense troops, local security personnel, part-time soldiers who spend most of their time in civilian occupations. Part-time soldiers, Councillor Zephyr repeated. Yes. We thought it would be good practice for them. A chance to get some real-world experience, without the risk of facing a truly dangerous opponent. The insult was delivered with such casual politeness that it took several seconds for the full impact to register. The Hegemony, the greatest military power in the spiral arm, had just been dismissed as a training target for human weekend warriors. However, Elena continued, We have completed our exercises now. Our militia forces have been rotated back to civilian duties. Our equipment has been tested and evaluated. Our procedures have been updated based on lessons learned. She paused, and when she smiled again, it was with the expression of someone about to deliver a punchline. Which means that if you choose to continue this conflict, you will have the honor of facing our actual military. The display changed again, showing new tactical data. Fleet compositions that dwarfed anything the humans had previously deployed. Technology that appeared to violate several fundamental laws of physics. Personnel numbers that suggested the humans had been holding back approximately 99% of their military capacity. This is impossible, Counselor Grix-Nine whispered. No, Counselor, Elena replied, her voice gentle but implacable. This is what happens when you declare war on a species that has been preparing for war since before your civilization learned to make fire. General Parks stepped forward again. Council Prime, you now have a complete picture of your situation. Your forces have been neutralized with minimal loss of life because we chose to prioritize capture over elimination. Your infrastructure remains intact because we value efficiency over destruction. Your species survives because we prefer peace to genocide. But make no mistake, Elena added, these are choices we have made, not limitations we face. The implications crystallized in Grix-Nine's mind with perfect, terrible clarity. The humans had not just defeated the Hegemony. They had defeated them gently. They had been careful not to cause more damage than necessary, careful to minimize casualties, careful to preserve options for peaceful resolution. They had treated the most powerful military force in the galaxy like a child having a tantrum, to be restrained rather than destroyed. You have 30 minutes to accept our terms, General Parks said. After that, we will assume you prefer to experience the alternative. The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. Vote, Council Prime Vorthix Supreme said finally, all in favor of accepting human surrender terms. 5 manipulators rose immediately. Then 6. Then 7. Within moments, every member of the council had voted in favor of unconditional surrender. Analyst Grix-Nine, Council Prime Vorthix Supreme said, prepare a response accepting all human terms. Full withdrawal, reparations, formal apology, non-aggression treaty. Yes, Council Prime. And Grix-Nine? Sir. Include a personal message from me to Colonel Elena Martinez. Tell her that we understand now. Tell her that we have seen what lies beneath the armor. As Grix-Nine composed what would become the most important diplomatic document in Hegemony history, he found himself thinking about Elena Martinez one final time. About her smile, her confidence, her casual discussion of violence and restraint and the thin line between civilization and annihilation. She had been right, of course. He had called her beautiful without understanding what beauty meant to a species that had learned to make art from warfare and poetry from violence. He had seen the surface without comprehending the depths beneath. The armor was not just protection. It was not just restraint. It was mercy. It was the choice to be civilized when civilization was optional. It was the decision to show mercy when mercy was a luxury they could afford to grant. And they had just learned that humanity could afford to be very, very merciful indeed. 3 cycles later, when the last Hegemony forces had withdrawn from human space, and the reparations had been paid and the formal apologies had been delivered, Grix-Nine received a personal message through diplomatic channels. It was from Elena Martinez. Thank you for the conversation on New Phoenix. It read, I hope you understand now why we choose to keep the armor on. The universe is a beautiful place. It would be a shame to damage it unnecessarily. Also, I wanted you to know that I am getting married next month. My fiancé sends his regards. He is a teacher, too. We are planning to start a family and raise our children on New Carthage, in the house we are building where your forward command post used to be. The garden is coming along nicely. With respect and professional admiration, Colonel Elena Martinez, Kim, 3rd Battalion, Human Colonial Defense Force, retired. Grix-Nine read the message 17 times before filing it in his personal archives. Then he sat back in his chair and contemplated the universe and his place in it and the mathematical certainty that Elena Martinez would raise her children to be exactly as dangerous and beautiful and terrifyingly competent as their mother. Somewhere in the depths of space, humanity continued its patient expansion into the cosmos, carrying with them the knowledge of war and the wisdom to choose peace. They built homes and schools and gardens, raised families and wrote poetry and made music that could bring tears to eyes that had never known sorrow. And beneath it all, hidden beneath the armor of civilization, but never forgotten, slept the capacity for violence that had carried them from the caves of ancient Earth to the stars themselves. Beautiful, terrible, absolutely unstoppable humanity. The universe was a safer place, with them wearing their armor. It was also, Grix-Nine reflected, a much more interesting place, knowing what they looked like underneath.